Welcome to the first of our We Should Have Been at Money 2020 video podcasts. Today I'm delighted to be joined by author, advisor, and commentator Dave Birch. Hi, Dave.
Thanks very much for the invitation, Nick. Really appreciate it.
So, Dave, there's so much we could be talking about right now. I mean, I guess the conceit behind these videos is that we should all be sitting in Amsterdam, having a nice cup of coffee, and chatting about what's going on in the world of European payments. But that isn't happening. However, handily, some people are providing content anyway. For example, authors like yourself.
Some people can't be stopped.
The currency Cold War. Tell me about the kind of central conceit about that. Is there really a Cold War going on right now?
Well, actually, the reason I came to that conclusion was because when I was writing the book, remember, this all goes back to the days when Libra began, and clients were asking, and I started to write about Libra, and I wasn't really convinced about it. And then I started to look at some other things about different organizations, and I came up with a set of tensions.
Yeah.
So sort of private versus public, East versus West, tech versus finance. And I was trying to look at how these would shape the sort of digital currency space. And that really was the origin of the book. That's why, my publisher said that actually would make quite an interesting book as long as you get it out now, because now it's a hot topic. So that was very wise advice.
And you did manage to keep it absolutely right up to date, because I mean, you've even managed to get, the helicopter money from the US government going into the US population into the book. So you must have been working literally right up to the printing.
So I don't want to make it look like I was particular genius about this. I mean, I think lots of people could sort of see that the pressure for digital currency was going to increase because of the virus. I was just lucky that I had the sort of structure to drop that stuff into, ready to go. But the point about the central metaphor, quite a few people had written about this as a space race, actually. And at first I thought that's a good example, the new space race. But then because I decided to focus on, the book needs a narrative,
Sure, of course. So I mean, let's make this real. Let's kind of make this for real then, right? So the Chinese government have essentially said that the money, for example, that is in WeChat Pay and Alipay, their intention is for that to become the money that's held in those wallets will be real Chinese state digital yuan, right?
I mean, yeah, you're right. So just to make the distinction clear, Nick, because I think some of the people listening in won't be obvious to them. When I talk about electronic money and electronic cash, I'm talking about two different things. I'm not using them as generic words. So electronic money is something, it's credit that goes from my account to your account. That's the money we have now. And if I send you some money with this would never happen in real life, but if I was to send you some money with Ping It, that's electronic money transfer.
Yeah, one of the
electronic cash goes from me to you, or from my mobile phone to your mobile phone. It doesn't go through a bank. It doesn't go through an account. It goes from your set-top box to my PC, or however we organize that. And China has made it very clear from the beginning they want electronic cash.
They've gone further, right? They've said that they want it to be able to. You want to be able to do it offline as well. So touch one phone to another phone, and the money moves just like Mondex.
You're right. It's exactly the same idea, that the money can go from device to device. And the governor of the Central Bank of China, the People's Bank of China, said specifically that this was so that the system would operate even when there was no mobile phone network. So if there's a natural disaster or
sure,
hurricane or floods or something, people can carry on transacting with each other. And then at some point in the future, the devices will go back online and it will tally it all up. And he said Bitcoin can't do that. And I thought that was a very interesting, it was a very interesting choice of phrase,
Do you think consumers want this?
But I don't think that's the right way to analyze it, because I don't think it's about domestic consumption. The reason I want the Bank of England to construct digital sterling is not particularly to improve the payment system in the UK, although the Bank of England themselves said even taking, I don't have it in front of me. I think they said even converting a third of the notes and coins in circulation to a digital currency in the UK would lead to a permanent GDP increase of 4%. And man, do we need a GDP increase right now?
But I mean, I get it. I get it from an economic perspective. But I mean, ultimately, consumers are they need to use it and want it, don't they? I mean, actually, one of the things that really struck me is there's a kind of optimism in your book that, I mean, you kind of go out of your way to say, well, AI will solve these problems and be able to manage the risk and do all of those kinds of things. But then you also say that, bad guys are always ahead in the race. So if we digitize our currency, aren't we just making new ways in which bad actors can...
I don't think I said they were always ahead in the race. I mean, the point I was making there was, what's the most effective way to catch the bad guys?
Yeah.
Do we build these incredibly high barriers to try and keep them out, which basically don't keep them out? You only got to look at the figures.
Exactly.
And, and make an incredible friction for law-abiding consumers. So what I was saying was, in a digital currency world, why would you build barriers to keep people out? Because what you want is everybody inside, including the bad guys. And then we use the machine learning, artificial intelligence to find out what they're doing.
But the fundamental challenge here is you need to, so you sort of change your mind halfway through the book about whether these things should be anonymous or not. But isn't the fundamental problem here that identity is kind of at the heart of all of this, so whether that is revealed or not. But actually the unsolved problem is, how do you bind my real world identity to one or more digital identities? That seems to me to not really be that's not a solved problem.
I mean, I think it's more perceptive than you think, actually, Nick.
You mean it sounds like a stupid question, but it's a good question?
No, I'll phrase it another way.
That's fine. I like it.
Well, actually, you've hit the nail on the head there, Nick, because not only did I change my mind partway through writing books, I changed my mind partway through my career. Because when I was first, in the old days, Mondex in Swindon, I tended to come from the anonymity camp. So I thought that allowing anonymous digital currency up to certain levels would be the better way forward. But as I'm less convinced. The more time I spend thinking about it, the more I think that certainly if you live in a Western social democratic society, the negatives from having anonymous currency are just too great. And I think basically, and you'll see this reflected in my original book, Identity is the New Money. The thing that sort of brought me around to that thinking was actually social media. It was the intersection of social media and social democracy that made me change my mind about those kind of things. So now I kind of think the best way forward, if you imagine a digital sterling, I mean, there's different ways you could set the privacy dial, but I rather like what people call the smash the glass model, really, which is, you transact in privacy. So the bank, I'm allowed to put Mickey Mouse on my account or whatever. I mean, the bank knows it's Dave Birch.
Yeah, but when something goes wrong, so it's anonymous until something goes wrong, and then with the appropriate permissions, you go look who made these transactions.
Right. So the police go to Barclays with a warrant and say, who's Mickey Mouse? And they say it's Dave Birch. But unless I do something wrong, which they get the warrant for, then I'm Mickey Mouse. It's up to me if I want to tell people I'm Dave Birch. They shouldn't be able to sort of spy on me as the byproduct, as the exhaust of our transactional life. So I absolutely recognize this is one of the most complicated questions to answer about electronic cash, and is a very, very difficult because of the sort of ethical and moral context around it as well. But yes, you're right. I did change my mind. When I was writing a long time ago, I thought anonymity was the best way forward, and now I don't.
Dave, there's so much more that we could talk about just on this topic. I'd love, for example, to talk about the idea of tainted currency, the idea that with a digital currency, some Bitcoins might be more valuable than others depending on where they're coming from. But I'm not sure we've got time today, so maybe we'll have to have a second conversation another time.
Anytime, Nick, of course.
Anyway, Dave's book, The Currency Cold War, is out now in all good bookshops. online, of course, or in an appropriately socially distanced Waterstones near you. So, Dave, thanks very much. It was great to talk.
Thanks very much, Nick. Really appreciate it.